is not just a job. It is a way of life and culture, and it can tend to dominate.
As a young Mirage trainee, I ejected out of one of these. In fact, it was a dual Mirage, and I should right up front in the Mirage story that I'm about to tell, which I hope hasn't been too embellished over the last 21 and a half years, acknowledge now Air Commodore Bruce Wood, who was the instructor with me at the time and is the real hero of this story. Now, if you look in the emergency checklist for the Mirage and you didn't get the undercarriage, it said, step 1, eject, step 2, no step 2.
I'd been talking to one of Jeff's instructors at the officers' mess, and he knew that I had reservations about Jeff flying and the safety factor side of things. And he'd said to me, now listen, Annie, you know, the chances of Jeff ever having to crash or eject, you know, are just 1 in a million.
And then the left wheel collapsed. Now, as you can see, it hasn't got very big wings, and they fell very quickly to the ground. The left one did anyway. And we left the runway doing a very fast rate of knots.
We were expecting people for dinner that night on this particular day.
And I was supposed to go home for dinner. And of course, she's waiting at home for dinner with some friends.
And I'd said to Jeff that morning, severely briefed him, that these people were coming at 7, so you be home, showered and changed, you know, by 6 so that we can meet these guests.
Poodle put the afterburner back in and attempted to get the airplane back up into the air. Now, at this stage, we've left the runway about 30, 40 degrees, and we're heading on the dirt across to where all the Mirages are parked and a couple of big hangars.
You tend not to dwell on the safety factor side of things.
And there's people apparently at this stage jumping out of hangar windows and jumping out of Mirages and running away because we're going to clean up the whole lot.
I mean, it is always there lingering.
Bounced into the air, bounced back down again, and literally then bounced over a hangar. And Poodle called for me to eject straight away.
Anyway, 6 o'clock rolls around. No Jeff.
Looking over and seeing Poodle come out, and then seeing the Mirage instantly run out of gas, and then pitch down. We went out pretty low, only a couple of 100 feet. And we were very close to where the squadron was. I can remember us hanging in the parachute, waving at the boys in the squadron who had all assembled in the car park, waving to us.
6:15, still no Jeff.
Anyway, the helicopter came and picked me up, and went and picked up Poodle, took us back to the bar.
6:30, and I'm pacing the floor.
Finally, I stagger up there, tell her what's happened.
And he just said, oh, I ejected. And it was like, well, that's the greatest story I ever heard.
In an emergency, the entire crew module with the 2 crew members in it can be ejected. Either crew member pulls an ejection handle to initiate the ejection, and the module is rocketed up and away. A parachute opens and lowers it to the ground.
We were just off the coast of New Zealand when we had a warning light, and fortunately Auckland was not too far away, so we diverted to Auckland. We had another aircraft in trail with us, and as we got closer to Auckland into the Hauraki Gulf, he informed us we're on fire. Your options become pretty limited then. The pilot had said we were going to eject. He leaned forward and pulled his handle. There is a delay of about 0.3 of a second. I thought it hadn't worked, and I leaned forward and pulled my handle. We got a monumental thump then, and you go out with quite an expressive feeling. Once we were clear of the aircraft, you looked up and could see the parachute was deployed. I looked out to the right and could see the aircraft itself was still flying, but it was just sort of getting up and stalling, and I lost sight of it as it entered the water. Well, the impact of the capsule is about 18 G. Right now, we're all standing here with 1 G on us. As the doctor put it to me one day, he said, your back's 15 years older than you are, so look after it.
And the RAAF Academy was recruiting. They gave free trips to Melbourne. Well, away I went. Next you know, you got a haircut, passed the test, and here it is, 27 years later.
Well,
rock and roll.
Yeah, I guess that's the big change. Married with a wife and kids.
Well, it's easier to say your family comes first, but it's hard to do that in a service career, of course. I mean, as we all know, the service looks after you, does the best you can, but moving every couple of years is difficult.
I guess people have a perception that flying is Top Gun and Tom Cruise and...
I told you never to mention the words of this documentary ever again, you. Mate, jokes aside, I mean, there's been times out there, you know how to get it, too. Not only with other navigators and other pilots, where, you know, it does get scary. And as much as you can show people what it's like to do an air show or fly around on a sunny day. No one understands what it's like. In the middle of a dark thunderstorm, pitch black night, you can't see a yard in front of your face. You're down there at 200 feet, and it's all happening real quick. But you can never really go home. You know, how was work today, dear? Well, that never really comes across. How can you tell you what it's like out there? You know, a beautiful sunset out over the middle of the Pacific, or scared to death in the middle of the night in a dark thunderstorm, or flying down a beach and having a good time, or getting a DH in a shack with a bomb.
Yeah.
How can you tell them? You know?
Any time they ever went away, there was always some major drama, some major crisis that used to happen, be it with the house or be it with the kids. And naturally you did cope, you managed to cope on your own. However, that was a lot easier to do when you lived on the base married quarters. And unfortunately, I think social changes really have changed a lot of that, in that there are a number of wives today with careers, and there isn't that need there for the officers to live on base. But it was a wonderful support group, because when the squadron was deployed away, those wives that were left behind were all in the same boat, all experiencing the same highs and lows, and there was an instant support system there, whether you had relatives living nearby or not.